Character customization and character development are key factors which make Elden Ring such a great game. We all like to experiment with new items, spending our attribute points in the most unique ways to discover powerful new builds. However, if you are new to the Fromsoftware games like me, never touched a Dark Souls game before, well, the attribute point system and how these stats work can be quite confusing. In this starter guide, I will help you to better understand each of them, give you a clear explanation of what they do to your character, so you can get off the right foot with your first adventure in Elden Ring. So guys, let's get right to it. Before we get started, only a small percentage of you awesome people who are watching my channel is currently subscribed to it. Make sure to do that if you don't want to miss out on future content, and of course, if you also want to help out a little bit, make sure to hit that like button, very much appreciated. If you create a new character in Elden Ring, you have the option to choose between different origins. The Vagabond, Warrior, Hero, Bandit, Astrologer, Prophet, Samurai, Prisoner, Confessor and also Wrench. All these characters have pretty much different stats. They have a different level, but also different attribute points, which greatly influence your character's abilities, what they can pretty much wear as weapons and armor, the different kinds of magic they can use in combat, etc, etc. Personally, I think the Wrench is the most interesting and best choice to start your adventures with in Elden Ring. Starting at level 1 with 10 in each attribute point, this one has room to grow in all different directions. Maybe you want to try a little bit of strength and dexterity to try out different weapons and armor, or you can go with intelligence and faith to try out some magic. Basically, you will have the purest experience, especially because you start out naked. But if you have absolutely no clue what these attribute points are for and which ones to prioritize, especially early in the game, you might end up with some pretty serious problems. So let me explain every single one of them. The characteristics of your, well, character can be divided in two major categories. You have your main character attributes, for example Vigor and Mind and Endurance. These things can be upgraded using runes to pretty much level up, increase your major stats in the game. But then you also have the general stats, which are influenced based on how you use your runes to level up pretty much. Choose which attributes you want to have on your character, so let's check out every single one of them. First and foremost, we have Vigor. This is without doubt one of the most important stats in the game, as it increases your HP or health points. In addition to that, it also increases your fire resistance and immunity stat. Immunity is something that you need to become more resistant against poisons and blight, which are, for example, the poison status effect and also the scarlet rot, something that you want to avoid as much as possible. During your playthrough, you definitely want to continue investing in this stat, as it will increase your HP pool and of course prevent you from getting one shot, which is very important, especially later in the game. If you like to play with melee characters and especially always be in the front line, the Vigor stat is without doubt one of your most important ones to spend runes on. Next up we have Mind, and this attribute greatly focuses towards FP or focus points, so yeah, focusing. Also affects the focus stat. This pretty much increases your resistance to sleep and madness effects, so your character doesn't get crazy or fall asleep mid-fight. But the most important stat right here is definitely the mana or the focus points, which allow you to cast magic and also use skills of your weapons. It is safe to say that Mind is very important for spellcasters and people who like to use magic all the time. Next up we have Endurance. This attribute will increase your stamina, so this pretty much influences the way how much you can roll during combat and also affects robustness. So if you're heavily invested in this attribute, your resistance to hemorrhage and frostbite effects will also increase big time, which I think is very nice. But most importantly, this attribute also determines how heavily your equipment can be. Basically, if you want to bring some heavy armor to the battlefield and also want to equip different weapons, which you can change during combat, maybe also a shield and a bow, this will heavily influence your equip load. With an equipment load below 30%, you will pretty much have a light load. You can roll pretty fast, you won't use too much stamina when doing so. I think the same counts for the normal load, which is between 30 to 70%. You should definitely stay below this threshold, because if you go over it, well, you will have a fat rolling state. You will be heavily loaded, rolling is going to be extremely slow, it's also going to cost you even more, and the stamina regeneration will also be penalized by about 20%, which is definitely not interesting. In this case, you want to equip some secondary weapons or maybe even bows which you don't always use and only equip them if they are very necessary, but make sure you stay below that 70%. If you go even higher, if you go above the 100%, you are basically unable to perform dodge rolls and you cannot even run. So this is also a situation that you want to avoid at all times. This is a very important attribute for all the people who want to play with heavier armor and also be in the front line, use those melee attacks, and of course also need enough stamina to do those dodge rolls, pretty much avoid the attacks of enemies. Same counts for the next attribute, which is strength. This one is required to wear some heavy armor, of course also some heavier weapons, especially the colossal weapons. It allows you to wield these items without a problem and also boost your attack power of strength scaling armaments and even boost your physical defense. So strength is not only good for offense, but also the physical defense, which pretty much means all the basic incoming attacks, nothing based on magical or elemental damage. If you want to know more about all the different physical damage types in Elden Ring, definitely make sure to check out my video in the top right of the screen, because in this one I explain every single one of them and share which one is the best in certain situations. Anyways, the next stat is Dexterity. This attribute is required to wield some pretty special or advanced armaments. I would say it's perfect for a rogue type of character, also somebody who wants to be a little bit more immune to falling damage, etc. It also reduces the casting time of your spells and makes it harder for you to get knocked off your horse. So it will give you a little bit of resistance, but most importantly, increasing your attack power with those dexterity weapons. A great example for this are the katanas. So yeah, if you want to be a flipping ninja on the battlefield, dexterity is your way to go. Then we have another interesting attribute for casters, intelligence. And this one is required to perform glintstone sorceries, also boost your magic power of all these abilities, the intelligence scaling sorceries, and improve your magic resistance. So if you're building a mage character, the intelligence stat is going to be very important for you, but of course also if you want to prevent enemies to deal a lot of magic damage to you, this one will come in handy very well. Then we have Faith. This one is also magic focused, but more for the incantations, because incantations are also a form of magic, let's say. It also boosts the magic power of all these faith scaling incantations. Basically, if you're using those dragon breaths, then you need to get your hands on all that faith. As you already saw, probably some of them require a lot of faith, so you have to need to crank this up before you can actually use them. If you want to know more about incantations, how to cleanse yourself using magic, etc, etc, I have a pretty cool guide for that one as well, top right of the screen. And then, last but not least, we also have Arcane. And I think this is an underrated stat, because many people already said in my videos like, hey bro, how do you get your hands on full armor sets in like 20-30 minutes? Because it took me over an hour and I still couldn't find the helmet. Well, basically this attribute increases your discovery stat. Discovery basically increases the chances of you to find items on corpses after defeating foes. So that's pretty much the white stuff that comes out of a character after you defeated it. And in addition to that, it also affects holy defense, vitality, and certain sorceries and incantations. Personally, I think Arcane is a great stat if you want to get your hands on a lot more treasure, a lot more loot from defeating enemies, but I don't think it's going to be very interesting for the other stats. I'm currently working on a video where I do a comparison with a character with only 10 attributes in Arcane and also one with 20 to 30. You can literally see a difference of times 3 to 4 more loot. So I definitely think it's interesting to spend a couple points in this one if you're having trouble finding full armor sets and also weapons during your adventures. Alright fellas, that is everything you need to know about the main character attributes and also the general stats in Elden Ring. If you kinda already messed up these points and are currently mid-game, don't worry, because my next video will be about respeccing your stats in the game, how you can reset your attribute points to rebuild your character entirely to make it a lot more interesting. But definitely let me know in the comments if you also want me to make a video about, let's say, the immunity, robustness, and focus, etc, etc. I'd love to do that. Anyways, right now it is 4 AM out. I want to wish you an awesome day. Till next time. Peace.